30 years ago today, Nirvana dropped probably the most important album of the entire 90s decade. Of course, I'm talking about Nevermind today, but more specifically, I'm talking about the best track on the album in my opinion, and that track is... Yes, it is In Bloom. Now, I don't know if that's a basic opinion or not. People either seem to love it or they just don't talk about it, which is weird because it was released as a single like over a year after Nevermind came out, which is pretty funny. But this is just a song that I've always really loved. I've always thought it was one of the best on the album just because it's such a hard rocking song. And talking about Nevermind specifically before I really dive into In Bloom, Nevermind is my second favorite album of all time. Just following Pearl Jam's 10, I think that this album is absolutely perfect. If you include Endless Nameless or not, it doesn't really matter for me. Like, I'll listen to it if it's there, but if it's missing, I don't really care. But if you look at every single track on here, I mean, you know, people always like to hate Smells Like Teen Spirit. I still think it's a great song. And then In Bloom, and then Come As You Are, just like all these iconic songs. Breed, like I'm just gonna name a ton of them like randomly. Polly, Territorial Pissing, Stay Away, Lounge Act, On a Plane. Like I could name Something in the Way. I can name every single song on this album, and they're all phenomenal songs. I really just love them all. But I thought instead of ranking the songs today, now I actually did do that in the past last year, like probably 10 months ago, and my ranking has changed a lot. Yeah, Smells Like Teen Spirit was number one, so it's a great song, but it's definitely not my number one anymore. In Bloom is definitely my favorite song on this album, and this is an album that I've loved ever since I originally heard it. I feel like that's what everybody has to say, but talking about In Bloom specifically, what makes it my favorite song on Nirvana and the one I consider the best, but favorite best, whatever you want to say, I think it all comes down to the fact that it's a song that showcases the best of every member's talent in a way, or at least it showcases their talent all really well, because Kurt Cobain's lyrics, we'll talk about Kurt first, his lyrics are very important here. A lot of the times he always says, oh, I don't actually write about anything, and people always interpret my songs, but in a song like this, he writes about the people who misinterpret the words. Obviously in the chorus, the lines are shown, like this line here. I don't think I can actually play the real song, so I won't try to do that because I don't want the video to get blocked, but it's kind of like a song that's like meant for, you know, like the rednecks and the homophobes and all those like idiotic people. So I like that there's actually some real meaning behind the song, but it isn't just straight up. And now I don't have a problem with the song straight up. Like Rape Me is in my top 10 favorite Nirvana songs. I think the song is incredible, and then songs like Polly are more subtle about it, just like this song, and it works so well. And of course the guitar riff is one of the best of Nirvana's catalog, like probably top 5 at least in my opinion. But I just love the dynamic between the guitar, the bass, and the drums. I mean, the drumming is something that I'll talk about in a minute just because it's phenomenal, but I just love how we get the little breaks in there, but still there's like almost these like sharp hits of some like right at the end of like what would be called like the second bar or whatever of it. Basically, if you know how the song goes, when the power chord goes back to the 4th fret and then it's just like bam, it just ends abruptly and quickly. I just think that that's like a perfect little thing, and that's just the intro, and then it kind of like slowly moves along. And talking about stuff slowly moving along, Chris Novoselic's bass is just incredible. His bass playing is amazing. I've always thought he was a very underrated bass player. He's just so special. Like he, of course, on stage was just really awesome, whether he's throwing the bass and hitting himself in the head, but just in general, his bass lines, he doesn't get enough credit for them. Obviously, Lounge Act is a big one that people talk about when talking about him, and Sliver, not Silver, Sliver. It seems like everybody thinks the same thing that I used to. You may not notice it, but there's actually like a quite significant section of the song where there is no guitar, and it's just the bass like kind of like chugging along there, and it works so perfectly. And then of course the drums. Dave Grohl, one of my favorite drummers of all time. This is my favorite Nirvana song when it comes to the drumming, and yes, it is because they're so significant. I'd say in the intro they're the most important part because they fill everything. I mean, the drum fills are so awesome. Because I'm not a drummer, I couldn't tell you if they're basic or not, but I just love the sound of it, the hard hits, because obviously Dave, when he plays, he's always like going like this, and you know, he probably can't see a thing, and he always gets really like sweaty when you watch him in videos is, which is a weird thing to say. But he just puts all of his energy into the drum set, and I just love that because you can really feel it in the studio one, live, anything like that. I mean, I've seen the song live a million times on YouTube, and I've listened to the studio version probably like a million times, and that's something that I really love about the song. I think that's my favorite thing. I think that's what makes it my favorite, is just the dynamic, and everybody's talent is shown basically to like their full ability, you know what I mean? Because while Dave Grohl smashes away at the drums, Chris Novoselic kind of just like, he keeps going, he treads along with the bass, but it's like kind of, it's not hidden because you can still hear it, but it's still so important, and you may not even notice it when you listen to it for one of your first times. And then this is one of my favorite Nirvana riffs of all time, and the lyrics are so meaningful. In Bloom is my favorite song off Nirvana's Nevermind, and that is my second favorite album of all time, so that's saying a lot. But I want to know what your favorite song is from this album. I will eventually re-rank all the songs because that video is privated, and I like to go through all the Nirvana albums because there's some of my favorites of all time. Nirvana, top 5 bands of all time, I think so. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Over and out.